It's 5 years later, and Paul Kersey finds himself right back to where he started. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about Death Wish 2. I figured since I did the first one the other day, I'm going to do the sequel, and I'm actually going to do the third one. It will be out on Friday. I do own the fourth one, but I'm going to wait until later on down the road to do that one. And I don't own the fifth one, that one's not very good. But eventually I'll get to the fifth one somewhere down the line. Now, this film came out 8 years after the first film. This one came out February 19th of 1982. This one had a budget between $2 and $10 million, depending on the source you look at. The filmmakers claim it was $2 million. The Cannon Group said it was 10. There's reports that it was 8. Who knows? But somewhere between $2 and $10 million. Upon release that year, it made $16 million, and it's an hour and 29 minutes long, a little shorter than the first film. Now, after the success of the first film, which Dino De Laurentiis produced that film, but when the sequel talks came up, Dino De Laurentiis wasn't interested, so he sold the rights to the Cannon Group for supposedly $200,000. Now, the Cannon Group in the 80s is notorious for doing low-budget action films. They did a lot of Chuck Norris films, Missing in Action 1, 2, and 3, Invasion USA, a lot of other films as well. Over the Top they did eventually with Stallone, which is a really good film. I do like some of the Cannon films. They did Delta Force, which is one of their bigger budgeted films. They did, they did a lot of films. Superman 4, oh goodness. Masters of the Universe. Then they went out of business because they had a lot of string of misses, as they say. But anyway, Michael Winner came back to direct this film. He went on to do a bunch of films in the 70s after Death Wish, and they weren't very successful. So when they asked him to come back, he jumped at the chance because he needed a hit, and he figured this was a surefire way to get a hit. Charles Bronson came back as well as Paul Kersey. We have Jill Ireland as Jerry, his new girlfriend. He's living in L.A., and Jill Ireland was actually married to Charles Bronson up until her death, which I think was in 1990. I believe she had an illness of some kind. Vincent Gardenia is one of the other holdovers from the first film. He played Detective Frank Ochoa. He's back again in this film. And we got a young Lawrence Fishburne as Cutter, one of these gang members who set Paul Kersey off, and they experienced his wrath eventually during this film. Now, after the first film, Brian Garfield, who wrote the novel Death Wish, was unhappy with that film, and he wanted to write a sequel novel, Death Sentence, which is actually a pretty damn good film, directed by James Wan, starring Kevin Bacon. It came out back in 2007. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's a pretty good film as well. Now, the Cannon Group did not like the novel, Death Sentence, so they decided just to write a script furthering the exploits of Paul Kersey. So this time, they shot it in L.A., and I know at the end of the first film, he ends up in Chicago because he transfers to Chicago, gets out of New York. They explain in this film in a throwaway sentence, quick, just to explain that he moved his business to L.A. from Chicago, and now he's working for this radio station. He's designing a new building for them. And his girlfriend, Jerry, works for this radio station as a newswoman. And right in the beginning of this film, we see he also moved out his daughter. His son-in-law is nowhere to be found, but if you remember in the first film, you get the sense that his son-in-law wasn't going to hang around long, like he couldn't handle the situation. So she's out in L.A. now as well. And they set it up. It's a nice sunny day, and Paul Kersey's out with his girlfriend, Jerry, and his daughter, and they're walking around this market, and he says, I'll go get some ice cream. And he has a run-in with this gang. They end up taking his wallet. They, bump into him, take his wallet and his money. He chases the one gang member down. He throws him around a little bit and leaves him go and goes back. But unfortunately, they have his driver's license. They know where he lives. And at home, he has a maid or a helper around the house who cooks for him and cleans the home. And she's home preparing dinner for them all. And the gang shows up before Paul Kersey gets home. And here's where we get our first brutal rape scene. And it is pretty brutal. Now, they said, filming this, the actress who plays the maid said all the actors were very respectful. As soon as the director yelled cut, they covered her up because there's nudity. It's not very pleasant, nor is rape ever pleasant when it's portrayed on film or in real life, obviously. It's just always very uncomfortable to watch it. And unfortunately, this film has 2 rapes and another attempted rape. So it's not, they really pushed the envelope here a little bit. Definitely a sleazier film than the first film. And the gang members wait for Paul Kersey to get home, which he does with his daughter. His girlfriend goes off to work, and he goes home. They knock Paul Kersey out, kick him around a little bit, and take his daughter hostage. And that's where things get really ugly, because they take her back to this building, they rape her, and then she runs, because she's still damaged from what happened in the first film. She is getting better. You could tell she's not as zombie-like as she was in the first film. She doesn't talk still, but she smiles, and you could tell she's enjoying herself, or, she's not as comatose as she once was. But after the rape, she gets up and runs and jumps out of the window and lands on this iron rod fence and impales herself, and she's dead. When Paul Kersey gets the news, he's not really helpful with the cops like he was in the first one, like seeking their help. They're asking him to look at mug books. He goes, there's no real point, is there? Because he knows from the first film they never caught the muggers that killed his wife and raped his daughter. So right after this, he gets his gun out of hiding in his house, and he decides to rent a shitty hotel room downtown LA, and he goes out and he starts hunting these guys down. Now, this is where the film differentiates a little bit from the first film. The first film, he never got revenge on the guys who actually did it. Never found them, never seeked them out, really. He just went out every night after he started doing it, and anybody who would accost him, he would shoot and kill. In this film, his purpose is to find the gang members that are responsible for what happened and make them pay. And that's what he does. Now, in the first film, when he shot a mugger, it was never like the mugger never repented or asked for forgiveness. Nothing like that, because it was always in the heat of the moment. It was always dirty, quick spouts of violence during that film. In this film, when he finds the first guy of the gang, he's in it with another guy in the basement of this old abandoned hotel, and they're about to make a drug deal. So when Paul Kersey is discovered, he tells the guy, he shoots the one guy. Now, the guy that was with the gang that raped his maid and kidnapped his daughter is left, and he tells the two guys who are going to buy drugs to hit the bricks, and they leave. And the guy, almost like he's not repenting or asking for forgiveness or to be left go, but he gets really quiet. Like, his demeanor of being, obnoxious and in your face about, I don't give a shit, I'll do whatever I want, is gone. And he's very quiet, and it's almost like he comes to the realization is, oh shit, I'm actually going to have to pay for my crimes and my sins in this moment. Because at this point, he's gotten away with so much shit during his life and never had to pay any consequences for it. Now he's going to pay the ultimate sacrifice for being an asshole. Pretty much, it looks like the look on his face. And he has a cross around his neck, and Paul Kersey asks him, you believe in God? And he goes, yes. He goes, well, you're about to meet him. And he shoots him and kills him. And this pretty much leads the way going forward. The next one up is more happenstance how Paul Kersey comes across the next gang member that was involved with what happened at his house. He hears this screaming in his parking garage, and he goes down, and here, the one guy that's in the gang that raped his maid and his daughter is with these other guys that weren't involved with that, and they're attempting to rape this guy's wife, and the other two guys beat the shit out of the guy. Paul Kersey steps in and kills them all and stops it. And when the cops question these people, they don't want to give him up because he saved their lives. And the guy even gives the cop shit. He's like, well, where the hell were you guys? Protecting a donut shop? I mean, you're never around when people need you, which is impossible for a cop to be anyway. But the fact of the matter is, Paul Kersey saved his wife from getting raped and saved him from probably getting killed. So they're very grateful, so they don't give the cops any information that's useful. Now, at this point, the city of LA realized they have a vigilante on their hands. So they contact New York because they realized 5 years earlier they had the same problem. They want to know how to handle it. So the police commissioner in New York, the district attorney, and Frank Ochoa have a meeting. And they want him to go to L.A. to consult with the L.A. Police Department. Don't give him any idea who it would be, though. And stop. They think it's Paul Kersey because they know he's living out there. They know what just happened to his daughter. And they think he took up the mantle of vigilante again. So they want Frank Ochoa to go out there and stop Paul Kersey any way possible because they don't want blowback if he would get arrested for people to find out that they let him go years earlier. That would look bad on them. So Frank Ochoa goes to L.A. This is like in the second half of the film. He doesn't show up till like the midway through, and then he's in for a little bit. He's not in it much. He goes to L.A., consults with the police department, and he catches up with Paul Kersey. Well, Paul Kersey is about to kill the rest of his gang, including Lawrence Fishburne's character, at this park at night. They're about to make an arms deal, like they're going to buy guns. And Frank Ochoa follows Kersey into this park. And Ochoa actually saves Kersey. There's a lookout in a tree with a gun. He's about to shoot Kersey, and Ochoa shoots and kills this guy. And there's a gunfight that erupts. And everybody gets killed except for one gang member, and Paul Kersey. Ochoa gets shot by the thugs and gets killed, and he just tells Kersey before he dies, find that motherfucker and kill him. The guy ends up getting caught by the cops and admitted to an insane asylum or a mental facility. And Paul Kersey disguises himself as a doctor, gets in there. And here's where we see a scene with Charles Cyphers from Halloween and The Fog and Escape from New York. He's in the film as this orderly in this maximum security ward of this mental institution. And he lets Paul Kersey in because he thinks he's a doctor at first. And Paul Kersey goes in and killing this guy. And when Charles Cyphers' character finds him, he read about his daughter and he understands. And he's even on his side. He goes, look, I'll give you 3 minutes to get her before I ring the bell. And I'll say I never saw you before. And he does. And at the end of the film, his girlfriend leaves him because she realized what he's been up to. And she's not for the death penalty or any of this stuff. So she doesn't agree with Paul Kersey's views on what was been taking place. So she leaves him. They were about to get married. She leaves the ring at his house and takes off. But at the end, he never gets arrested or anything. And at the end of the film, we see him walking all dressed down like he was earlier in the film, walking the dirty streets of L.A., and that's the end of the film. And that is Death Wish 2. Now, this film, I think it's a decent sequel for sure. I don't think it's as good as the original. Towards the middle of this film, this is when Paul Kersey becomes more like the Punisher than a guy who's grieving, doesn't know how to handle it, and takes things into his own hands. And I like this film. I just don't think it's as good as the original. It's definitely sleazier. It's just as gritty as the first film, because I think the first film is gritty too. But this starts to become more like, and this leads up into the third one, which really goes a little over the top with the action and the revenge factor. And I still like part 3, and I'm going to review that for Friday. But yeah, I would give Death Wish 2 a 7.5 out of 10. I think it is a decent sequel, a nice follow-up. Michael Winner directs it nicely. It's nicely shot. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10 for Death Wish 2. Oh, Jimmy Page did the score for this film from Led Zeppelin fame. Him and Michael Winner were next door neighbors to each other, so Michael Winner knew him and asked him to do the score, and he obliged, and he did the score for it, which is a pretty cool little score. Charles Bronson was 59 years old when they shot this film, and that's about it for trivia. Yes, 7.5 out of 10 for Death Wish 2. What are your thoughts on this sequel? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I greatly appreciate it. Have a great day. I will be back on Friday with Death Wish 3. Until then, you all take care. I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.